Hello and welcome back to Bookish Brits. My name is Michelle and today I would like to talk to you about the Murder Notebooks series by Cassidy. This video will be a review of each of the 4 books in the series, and I will do my very best not to spoil any of the main events in any of the books for you. Okay, the first book in the series is called Dead Time. Now, Dead Time introduces us to our main character, Rose, and it is her perspective that we'll see throughout all 4 of the books. Now, the Murder Notebooks series center around the fact that many years ago, Rose was living with her mother and her mother's boyfriend, and her mother's boyfriend's son Joshua, who is a few years older than her, and the 4 of them were a family for several years. Rose's mother and Joshua's father were police officers, and they were both involved in trying to solve cold cases, and one night they went out to dinner and they never returned. Rose and Joshua were separated and sent to live on different areas of the UK. Rose was sent off to live with her grandmother and shipped off to a boarding school, and Joshua was sent up to Newcastle to live with his uncle. Rose is now living in London with her grandmother, and Joshua is in university, also in London. Out of the blue, Joshua sends Rose an email and they decide to get together. On the way to meet Joshua, Rose witnesses this brutal attack on one of her schoolmates, and as Rose begins to look into the death of this student, she begins to wonder if perhaps the murder of this student at her school and the disappearance of her mother and Joshua's father are some way connected. Now, what I love about this series so much is that each of the books has their own story arc and mysteries and murders to solve and whatever, but also they have this overall series arc in which Rose and Joshua band together along with Joshua's roommate Skeggsy in order to solve the disappearance of both Rose's mother and Joshua's father. I thought the murder mystery aspect of the books was incredibly thrilling and interesting, and it was very exciting. But also that the overall story of the disappearance of their parents was incredibly interesting as well, and it really kept me hooked and excited to carry on with this series. And in the second book in the Murder Notebooks series, Killing Rachel, we find a little bit more about Rose's character and her history. A former friend and student with her at their boarding school, Rachel decides to contact Rose, and eventually she ends up dead. So this Killing Rachel really tells more about Rose's background and her friendship with Rachel and everything that sort of led up to Rachel's eventual death, and it was really interesting to find out why Rose is the way she is and to learn more about her character development and everything. Besides the murder mystery element to these stories and finding out about the disappearances and everything, one of the things that really attracted me to this series is this wonderful relationship between Rose and Joshua. For a couple of years when they were children, Rose and Joshua were living together as brother and sister. They were this family unit consisting of the 4 of them, but now, because of the disappearance of their parents and their separation of 5 years, when they meet again, you can tell that both, definitely from Rose's point of view, that she is starting to develop these feelings for Joshua that are definitely not of a brother-sister relationship, and it's really fun to see throughout each of the 4 books how these feelings progress as they continue to spend more time together and really rely on each other for emotional support for everything that they've gone through. The third book in the series is called Butterfly Grave, and in the same way that in Killing Rachel we explore some of Rose's previous background history and her friendships at the sporting school. In Butterfly Grave we see a bit more to Joshua's history as we travel up to Newcastle, where we meet his uncle who took in Joshua after the disappearance of Joshua's father, and unfortunately Joshua's uncle has fallen off a cliff and is in hospital. And quickly Rose and Joshua jumped to the conclusion that this cannot have been an accident based on the circumstances of the fall, and they decide to investigate a little bit more about Joshua's uncle and his dealings and relationships and everything. And by this book we can start to see some of the cracks in Joshua's confidence, and he becomes very paranoid, and a lot of this book was a little bit difficult to read as he is incredibly worried about his safety and about Rose's safety. And while all of these books in the Murder Notebook series deal with some very difficult things, and Rose and Joshua and Skeggsy are all put into a lot of dangerous situations, and in Butterfly Grave we find out a lot more about the murder notebooks themselves, which form the basis of this entire series, how they started, what it means, why butterflies in particular. And Murder Notebook series is called Dead and Buried, and this is the fourth and final book. It's published in March by Bloomsbury, and I was really excited to read it and see exactly how this book is going to end. I wanted to know what's going to happen to Rose and Joshua, and if they were able to come to terms with everything that's happened to them, to their friends, to their families, and definitely their parents. And the mystery that surrounds this book involves a dead body that appears to have been buried in the garden of this of the family home that Rose and Joshua and her parents all lived together many years ago. But as it goes on, we come to find out that the body that is recovered in their garden is that of a teenage girl who lived in the neighborhood, and the main suspect appears to be Joshua's father. In order to clear Joshua's father's name, they really have to dig much deeper and find out once and for all what has happened to them, what has happened to this dead girl buried in the garden, and everything comes to this really exciting closure, which was very exciting. There are many things that I love about this series. The first is the writing style really pulled me in. I'm really curious to read more books by Anne Cassidy, and in particular looking for JJ and Finding Jennifer Jones, which has just been published. I really liked all three of the main characters, Rose, Joshua, and Skeggsy. I thought their relationships together were really great, but also the character development between of each of the three characters was really fun to watch. I really liked that while all of this death and murder is surrounding them, all three of these characters are not left untouched. You can definitely see how much all of this has affected Joshua in particular, but also the other two as well. And I did like seeing the progression of this relationship between Rose and Joshua. While it does come to a conclusion of sorts, I did kind of want to see a little bit more into that, and definitely with the actual murder notebooks themselves, it really made me stop and think about the morality of vengeance. And I do like the way in which all of it ended, with everyone taking responsibility for what they've done. And while I did hope that things had ended slightly differently, because I didn't quite agree with everything, I did think the ending ended in a way that I was happy with. A really great series of 4 books. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video and that you end up picking up these 4 books. Thank you for watching.